مرحبا بالحضور الكريم، ومرحبا بالفعاليات التي تتابعوننا عن طريق زوم خارج هذه القاعة. نحن في هذه الجلسة الثانية لأعمال مؤتمرنا لا بد أن نشير إلى أننا نجد حلقة متواصلة مع ما تم إلقاؤه في جلسة هذا الصباح. طبعاً أذكر بومضات بسيطة عن المؤتمر 23 لأكاديمية المملكة لأكاديمية العالم الإسلامي تحت عنوان العلوم والتكنولوجيا والابتكار في ظل الأحداث العالمية الدائمة التغير. وكانت أول المحاضرات التي ألقيت في هذا الصباح تمشي في هذا النسق. إذن نحن في هذه الجلسة المباركة كان من المفروض أن تكون هناك 3 عروض، لكن نظراً لغياب أحد المحاضرات ذات المستوى الدولي العالي سنكتفي فقط بعرضين أساسيين. العرض الأول تحت عنوان المياه من أجل التنمية والتنمية من أجل الماء في إطار تحقيق رؤى أهداف التنمية المستدامة. والعرض الثاني تحت عنوان التعليم العالي بعد جائحة كورونا المستجد كوفيد-19، ما هي الدروس المستفادة من هذه الجائحة؟ طبعاً لا بد وأن نشير كمقدمة بسيطة على أن النتيجة السلبية للعولمة أعطت التفاؤل الخطير بين الشعوب وبالخصوص للدول السائرة في طريق النمو والدول التي خرجت عن هذا التصنيف الكلاسيكي. إننا أمام دول فقيرة ضعيفة لا حول لها ولا قوة لها في مواجهة ما أنتجته أزمنة العولمة. إننا في زمن أن نكون أو لا نكون، في زمن متغير وبسرعات كبيرة وخطيرة، وبالخصوص ما نعانيه أو تعانيه مختلف الشعوب الضعيفة في فقدان أمنها. على كل حال، للحديث على ما يقع الآن في عالمنا من الجائحات التي تصيب العالم، ومن الأزمات الاقتصادية، ومن الأوبئة، ومن مختلف الظروف الصعبة التي يعيشها زمننا في زمن الطاقة، وفي زمن التغذية، وفي زمن جوائح البيئة. أقول إننا في هذه الجلسة إن شاء الله سيحاطبنا فعاليتان من هذا المستوى. فقط أشير قبل أن أحيل الكلمة للسيدة الفاضلة الدكتورة سلام النظيفي، التي هي أستاذ التعليم العالي بجامعة الحسن الثاني بكلية الطب، اختصاصية في البيولوجيا الجزيئية وباختصار في علم الوراثة. فلها الكلمة لأن تقدم لكم الآن محاضرنا الأول.
شكراً cher ami. Bonjour à tous. Je voudrais profiter d'avoir le micro pour d'abord féliciter et remercier les organisateurs pour la qualité du programme. C'est un programme d'un grand intérêt, aussi bien sur le plan scientifique, mais aussi pour les besoins de tous les jours. Il a abordé la problématique agricole et il a abordé aussi l'aspect sanitaire, en parlant d'abord du cancer, qui est une pathologie qui tue encore, quel que soit l'âge, quel que soit le sexe et quelle que soit l'ethnie. Il a abordé aussi les problèmes énergétiques, les problèmes de l'eau. Et justement, avec nous, il y a Si El Khadi, qui est un des grands agronomes marocains, qui est membre résident de l'Académie Hassan II, président du Conseil général du développement agricole. Il a été négociateur agricole en chef dans le cadre de l'accord libre d'échange entre le Maroc et les États-Unis. Et il va aborder une thématique d'un grand intérêt, d'actualité, eu égard au discours de Sa Majesté le Roi, qui a centré son discours sur l'eau. Et Saïd El-Khadi va nous parler de l'eau en tant qu'un moyen, comment il l'a appelé, l'eau peut contribuer au développement, mais le développement aussi peut contribuer à l'eau. À vous la parole, cher ami.
Thank you, co-chairs. Excellency Professor Omar Fassifiri, Permanent Secretary of Hassan II Academy of Science and Technology. Dear fellows, ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased and honored to address this 23rd conference of the Islamic World Academy of Sciences. Before sharing a few initial thoughts on the topic of my presentation, water for development, development for water, realizing the Sustainable Development Goals vision, I would like to thank both academies for their kind invitation. The Kingdom of Morocco, over the years, has assiduously contributed to elevate water as a global communal concern. The growing international consensus on the need to work together across boundaries to address water challenges is the genesis of collective action and provides, in my view, compelling evidence of the emergence of global and regional cooperation to solve the many water challenges that humanity is facing. Our success in our use of water will be determined by the success with which we manage to live together. It is in the nature of things that the way we use water may lead the way in other relationships. In my talk, I will address the following 3 questions. Why water security is a global concern? What is the dynamic of water security and sustainable development? And what tools do we need to enable effective and sustainable use of water resources? So, first question, why water security is a global concern? Changes in socioeconomic and demographic dynamics in combination with technological and other changes are increasing the demand for a wide range of goods and services, all of which require more water. In the opposite direction, climate change is posing tangible challenges for societies. A predominant feature on the supply side of water management is more uncertainty and more pronounced amplitudes in freshwater resource availability, which adversely impact the reliability of goods and services that require fresh water. You can see here the water challenge and the demands and consumption by region and by sector, and you can see that agriculture counts globally for about 70% of the water resources. Both supply and demand pressures lead to water stress and associated risks. You can see this graph, the demand pressures, population growth, economic growth, climate change. And from the other side, you can see the supply pressures. And all of them contribute to increasing the risk, mainly to growth. So today, the challenge of water security is global and growing. Achieving and sustaining water security in both developed and developing countries is likely to increase in complexity and priority, not only as climate changes, but also as the demand of economic growth increase. I'm here quoting former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who underlined in this quote the fact that the water crisis is not an issue of rich and poor, nor north or south. All the regions are experiencing the problem of water stress. I have also this citation from the independent journal, which at the aftermath of the global financial crisis, and by analogy with this crisis, wrote, humanity is facing water bankruptcy as a result of crisis even greater than the financial meltdown now. Destabilizing global economy, it is already taking effect, and there is no way of bailing the earth out of water scarcity. The criticality of the water challenge is reflected in the World Economic Forum's Global Risks Report, in which for 7 years in a row, water is ranked as the global risk with the single critical greatest potential impact on economies. And you can see that water connects all the global risks, be them economic risks, ecological risks, social risk, and so on. The importance of the water challenge is also signaled by the dedicated sustainable goal for water, SDG 6, which we call the water goal, and which aim to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And you can see all the 8 targets that were set for this global goal. In fact, water affects the entire SDG agenda and cannot be addressed as a separate element in isolation from the other goals. But this interconnectedness has important implications. It means that the water goal can only be achieved if the other goals are attained, and in return, that other SDGs will be achieved if the water goal is attained. So this invites us to accept and embrace comprehensiveness and interconnectedness. In its UN Water Summary Progress Report of 2021, the United Nations has reported the world as a whole is not on track to achieve the water goal. And many countries are going backward. The clear picture is that collectively, there is a long way to go. So the question that arises, are our current approach to managing water still valid in the context of the SDGs? In my view, delivering the SDGs vision requires setting in motion new strategies governing the way we all live and interact with our environment in order to ensure that there will be enough water to support rather than constrain development and inclusive well-being. The implications of new approaches are twofold. First, we need to re-examine the current development paradigm and modify it so that national development strategies consider more explicitly the multifaceted role that water resources management plays in economic development, social well-being, and environmental sustainability. Governments need to put water resource management in its proper place as a central and integral part of overall economic planning and development. Second implication is that fundamental trade-offs will need clarifying. Trade-offs will not be a zero-sum game. Compromises will be needed based not only on techno-economic and environmental terms, but also on socio-political and geopolitical consideration, which often vary from one country to another. Above all, governments must accept, and as I said before, accept and embrace comprehensiveness and interconnectedness for an integrated water management approach. I move now to my second question. What is the dynamic of water security and sustainable growth? The dynamic between water security and sustainable growth is presented in this diagram. Sustainable economic growth, wealth, and human well-being are at the heart of this framing. The flow of this dynamic starts with water endowment. A country's water endowment comprises the absolute level of its freshwater availability, the fragility or strength of its freshwater ecosystems, and importantly, the variability of its hydrology. This is a natural endowment that will influence how much a country needs to invest to achieve a given level of water security. Water endowment, as you see, creates both opportunities for and risk to growth and well-being. Where water is reliably available, economic opportunities are enhanced. Where water is unreliable or of inadequate quality, or where water-related hazards, floods, droughts, contamination are present, there will be drags to growth. Here, a graphic which shows some of the results of our research, which illustrate the relationship between economic growth, hydrological variability, and investment in risk mitigation. It shows that wealthy river basins, the green dots at the upper left of the diagram, generally feature simpler hydrologies. Complexity of the hydrology in the x-axis is determined by the standard deviation. And on the y-axis, we have an index that comprises investment in infrastructure, institutions, regulation, and so on. So you have, for example, most of the large rivers of the north, mainly for number one, for example, is the Mary-Darling River in Australia, which is often cited as a good example of water management. Poorer basins, red dots clustered in the lower half of the chart, have invested less in water security, and many face complex hydrology. This is the case of most of the rivers in Africa, including, to some extent, the Nile River. It is also important to recognize the contextual factors and that pathways to water security will be influenced by economic, political, social, and cultural factors. Our research also showed that different parts of the world are subject, as you can see, to different versions of water and security. For example, South Asia has the largest global concentration of water-related risks, including severe impacts across the full range of hydrological variability, droughts to floods. Pakistan has recently experienced unprecedented floods, and I would like to express our solidarity and compassion with our brothers in Pakistan. The region has the largest global concentration of people without adequate sanitation and growing environmental threats. If we take Africa, in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa suffers the greatest impacts of inadequate water supply and sanitation, measured as a proportion of GDP. Africa also exhibits the greatest variability in crop production, highlighting African economies' sensitivity to hydroclimatic variability. North Africa stands out in terms of both the absolute number of people and the percentage of the population at risk of water scarcity. I would like very briefly to present to you the case of Morocco. Morocco is a highly water-stressed country with erratic rainfall and frequent droughts. But through its water strategy, our country has, over the years, made significant inroads in addressing its water challenges and strengthening its water security. The emphasis in Moroccan development planning for the last 5 decades has been on maximizing the capture of the country's surface water resources and providing for their optimal use in irrigated agriculture, potable water supplies, industrialization, and energy generation. Enormous capital resources have been invested in the essential infrastructure to capture more than 2/3 of the surface water potential. Today, this infrastructure comprises 149 dams, 3 water interbasins transfers, and of course, this has helped to put under irrigation 1.6 million hectares, which represent less than 13% of the whole cultivated land in Morocco, but contribute to 45% of the total agricultural GDP. As the country nears the end of the infrastructure phase, emphasis is shifting to the more sophisticated and difficult task of ensuring socially and technically efficient allocation of the existing water resources among competing consumer sectors on a sustainable basis. This task is ever more complex in the context of climate change. And you see here, we are experiencing a major drop of rainfall. You have the figure from 1961 to 2016. And our work on one of the largest rivers in Morocco, the Sebou River, shows that this has affected the hydrology regime of the river with low flows and which contribute to the concentration of pollution and floods who often come as floods. So this had made the hydrology more complex and the operation of the dam more difficult. So this complex hydrology combined with higher frequency of drought occurrence require a major transformation of water use and water policy. His Majesty King Mohammed VI has in a recent speech to the nation called for this transformation. So this transformation includes measures to improve the resilience of the water supply model by integrating and diversifying sources of supply through reuse and desalination. You have here a picture of one of our major desalination plants, which provides water both for agriculture and for the cities. It also calls for adapting water demands, especially those related to irrigation, by improving efficiency through irrigation water-saving technologies and better adapted crops. Our motto today is more crop per drop, more job per drop, more dirhams per drop, and this means that we need to count every drop, and every drop counts. My third question is, what tools do we need to enable effective and sustainable use of water resources? So given the change in the hydrological cycle as a result of land use and climate changes, and the closed character of many basins, allocation to and patterns of future water use for various sectors in society will deviate from past trends. So it is critical to understand how this complex interaction may develop and the associated economic, social, political, and environmental implication over the coming decades. New and better tools are needed to support policy development and decision-making and enable the effective and sustainable management of water use. We need to increase our knowledge about water resources as a system. To manage water well, it is critical to know how much water is available and how much is being used for what purpose. We should seek to understand how climate change, land cover and land use change, and other biophysical factors affect water resources, including water quantity and quality, extreme events, and other hydrological hazards. We need also to develop water system modeling techniques and the monitoring systems and data collection to validate them. Due to the variety of water management problems, different levels of model complexities must be available to feed the specific demand. In addition, to improve the model capabilities for a holistic system understanding, the next generation of hydrological models should emphasize the practical applicability to real-world problems. The applicability requirements need to include issues like data availability, data value consideration, and the quantification of uncertainties. The process of data acquisition, as we have seen in the other domains this morning, the process of data acquisition, storage, and delivery are constantly evolving as instrumentation and sensors now collect more data more rapidly as ever before. You have, for example, here a leader on a drone, and this can help monitor the whole runoff, monitor the linear hydrography, the flows in the rivers, and so on. And you can see also to the left that all the means and instruments of the Industry 4.0 can be mobilized. Last but not least, we need to build institutional capacities to strengthen institutional arrangements that function within increasing complexity, cutting across sectorial silos and sovereign boundaries. They require a new and evolving set of skills to support them. So, colleagues, let me conclude by saying that the size of today's water security challenge should not be underestimated. The social, economic, and political consequences of water shortages are real, as are the effects of water-related disasters. While the scale and complexity of these multidimensional challenges are huge, solutions are within reach. The goal is to increase water security by balancing societal requirements with the availability of natural water resources. Hence, understanding the connectivity between the multiple dimensions of water security is a critical step in effective policy design, policy implementation, and consensus building. Political will, and I insist, as well as political skill, need visionary and strong leadership to bring opposing interests into balance, to inform policy making with scientific understanding, and to negotiate decisions that are socially accepted. Colleagues and friends, the water challenge is an old civilizational challenge. Arrival, here you see, proceeds from Latin rivalis, which means those that share a river. But human civilization, we know, is a response to challenge. Certainly, water scarcity can be a source of conflict between competing users, particularly when combined with other factors of political tension. But it can also be an inducement to cooperation in even in high tension areas. And we can see many examples on that. For example, the King Hassan II Water Prize was granted to the Senegal River Authority because of this interstate cooperation. I believe that human civilization can find itself the resource to respond successfully to the many water challenges, and in the process make water a learning ground for building the expanded sense of community and sharing necessary to an increasingly interconnected world. So let's, through our academies, make the water challenge mainly an opportunity to innovate, to invest, to become economically and societally savvy, smart and just, and to ascertain our sustainable future. I thank you very much for attention.
Merci, merci Si Mohamed pour cette excellente conférence qui confirme nos inquiétudes. Mais je ne veux retenir à la fin qu'une phrase que vous avez dit, la solution est à portée de main. Et donc j'espère que, comme vous dites, les deux académies font de ce problème d'eau une opportunité pour développer des projets de recherche. Je vous remercie. Donc, la parole est à la salle pour des questions. Oui, c'est Bsri.